Hello and welcome to the Heaven Bound Podcast. My name is Jason Harden. I'm here with Roger Schaus, and we're opening the Bible in search of fuel for your spiritual journey. This is where we talk about life the way it was meant to be and what it means to be a disciple of Jesus in the 21st century. Wherever you are, thanks for joining us on the journey today.
We're so glad to have you with us. This month, we are talking about change. We're talking about change is coming. As we record this, there is snow on the ground, but it's 60 degrees outside.
It feels wonderful.
It feels wonderful. And you might say, well, how can you have snow on the ground and 60 degrees? Well, the snow is quickly going away, but we've had snow on the ground here for 2 or 3 weeks, and it doesn't look pretty and white anymore.
No, it has turned brown everywhere we look.
Yes. And so, but this month is really kind of a transition month. A lot of places we kind of getting out of winter. We're heading into spring. It won't be too long until a lot of the nurseries and stuff will start bringing in their flowers and people start thinking about getting outside and doing things. And that just reminds us of life itself. Life is not stagnant. It's always changing. And whether we talk about in our families and our lives personally, as we talk about the church, there's always a fluid movement going on. And for a lot of people, change is hard. People don't like change, but that's life. It's going to change. And all you have to do is look in the mirror and think, well, I'm not 16 anymore. I may feel 16, but I'm not 16. And the mirror reveals that. So in this month, what we're looking at is some different layers of change. Today, what we want to talk about is the family. And there's a lot of changes that take place. You start with this young couple, they're madly in love, they get married, but in the course of time, if God allows, a lot of photographs later on, you're going to see there's a lot of change that takes place in that family. And again, all of that brings about challenges. It brings about sometimes financial and time strains about certain things. But also within us, there's some great spiritual lessons. We want to talk about how you can prepare for some of those things, how we can be helped spiritually with some of those things. So as we begin this, let's first of all, Jason, talk about the dynamics of change within a family.
Yeah, we, in our first Friday discussion, spend a little bit of time in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. That involves, of course, our families. What immediately goes through my mind from the very beginning really is the end of Genesis chapter 2. You are only paragraphs into God's written revelation to mankind before Adam is introduced to Eve. Eve has been fashioned by God as a helper fit for him, and Adam exclaims poetically, "This at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Therefore," and here immediately comes a change, right? "A man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." We are pre-sin in the Bible. We are pre-curse in the Bible, and yet we see God has made everything beautiful in its time. This change in that family dynamic is not a result of sin. It is not flowing from some sort of a curse. Even before Adam and Eve have children, God has introduced an important dynamic that is still very much in play and appropriate and God ordained thousands of years after Adam and Eve. A man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife. Roger, we could spend the rest of the month just talking about the change that is implied in that verse, but that seems to be a good place to begin.
It is, and it's not so much about location as it is involving maturity. That Adam and Eve started off, and they had some sons. And all it takes is baby number one, and you start seeing some changes taking place. You get this young couple, maybe they're living in an apartment, and all of a sudden they realize we're out of room, or we've got to get all this stuff. It's amazing all the stuff that comes with a little bitty baby. You know, baby comes into the world with nothing, doesn't even know its name, can't speak. But you've got to get a place where it's asleep. You've got to get all this luggage to carry it from point A to point B, all this stuff. And that's a change. That involves expenses. That changes your sleep habits. That baby wakes up and he doesn't know it's 2 a.m. and you have to get up and go to work the next day. He's hungry and he wants to cry and he's going to cry. And you just can't say, well, grow up, because he can't. He's just that way. And so right there's some changes. And that's part of the family dynamics that change. And couples have since Adam and Eve, we adopt to that, we adjust to that, we make provisions wherever we can. And then all of a sudden you start realizing God places responsibility upon mom and dad to start raising this child. If you wait till that child is taller than you are and is driving a car to start thinking about spiritual lessons, it's too late. You start when that child's very, very young, and you say the prayer at the dinner table, and you try to get that child to fold his hands and bow his head. Then, and when he's a little bit older, you're having him say his prayers, and he may thank God for bugs and dandelions and all kinds of things like that. But you're teaching and you're teaching and you're teaching, and that your role has changed. When you're first married and it's just husband and wife, you're not doing that, because you're both mature adults and you don't have to go through those little things. But that's part of the change that takes place.
Yeah, a couple of things come to my mind on that front. You know, number one, just a couple of days ago on our Wednesday podcast, we talked about the importance of seeing beyond ourselves. And if we never see beyond ourselves, we are opening up the door to selfishness in a truly dangerous way. I have heard, I have shared, I have experienced, you truly cannot wrap your mind, I believe, around how easily it is to be selfish until you are married. Marriage uncovers selfishness that you didn't even see coming. But you know what even pulls off more of the covers of selfishness? And that is having another little human being that is completely dependent upon you, right? And so this change can help us grow in beautiful, beautiful ways. But if we're going to be what God would have us to be, self has to take a back seat over and over and over again. That's not a consequence of the fall. That is not a consequence of sin. That is the nature of life, right? That as new life is brought into the world, life that is completely dependent upon us, what a beautiful way of being taught and reminded and having a front row seat day after day after day. This is what it looks like to be dependent upon my Father in heaven. And every single one of us are, right? Not one of us made the sun rise this morning. Not one of us has the power to turn winter into spring. We are completely dependent, and God teaches us valuable lessons along those lines just as we watch the change within our own household.
And, you know, I've heard people say, well, you know, I don't think I can love somebody that much, but they can. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing as you do that. And part of that selfishness is, and giving up that selfishness is you're going to eat things that you probably don't want to eat. You're going to watch shows you're so sick of watching. Even as a grandparent, you know, I'd have the grandkids over and, man, don't you all want to watch the Dodgers? No. We want to watch Frozen for the 200th time, you know. And all I can think of is let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go. The Dodgers are on, you know. But you do that. Why do you do that? Because of that selfless love. But then what happens in a lot of homes is here comes baby number 2. And as much as you love baby number one, you love baby number two. And then there's that teaching of those two getting along with each other, and no jealousy, and then sharing. And what that does is it creates more challenges, more changes that's coming on in the family here. And as you're dealing with the older one, you have a little one, and the older one could do some things and the little one can't because of the age difference. And there's a lot of lessons. And through all this, what we're seeing is the change that takes place. Then as the kids grow a little bit older, they get to a point where they're moving out and they're starting their own jobs or their own careers. And then they get married. And then now you got new changes in your family. You got these people that you might consider outsiders. They're now insiders because they married your children. And so what we're seeing through all this is that life changes. The family dynamics changes. Mom and dad age. And there comes a time, as 1 Timothy 5 teaches us, that the children are a place where they need to take care of mom and dad. Where it's always been mom and dad taking care of them, that role changes. And so part of the learning and navigating this river we call life is understanding that it's constantly moving. It's constantly changing. And I know when I was a young parent, they got to that toddler. I didn't like the newborn because I always thought I was going to drop it or the arm was going to come off, or, you couldn't do much with them. But once you get on the floor and got roll around with them, man, that was my best phase. I just loved it. And I hope they would never change. I mean, I could be this way forever, I would think, but it's not going to be that way. And I've got kids now that are taller than I am, and I've got to look up to them. And so when you think about that creates a lot of challenges. One of the things we need to talk about within this is the spiritual dynamics.
Yeah.
And that is the key. Wonderful passage in Proverbs 27 verse 23 where the proverb writer simply says, "Know well the condition of your flocks. Pay attention to your herds." One of the things you'll notice as your children age is that even though you know where they all came from, they're all yours, each one is unique in their own way. And whereas one, all you have to do is just kind of give them that little eye, just look at them and they know to straighten up. Others, you just have to keep going over and going over and going over the lessons because they don't seem to get it. Each child is different. Each child has different needs, just as each individual person is that way. And so that is something as parenting, as we think about the family, that's unique, and we got to put our attention to those things.
Yeah, there are two words that come to my mind as you've been talking the last couple of minutes. I think you framed it well. We need humility. I can speak for myself, Roger. I have a feeling you are like me and like just about everybody else that I've ever talked to about these things. You have a sense before you get married, well, this is the way this is going to go. Or before you have children, you know how to raise children. You know how this is going to go. And if we're honest with ourselves, these changes in life and all of these ups and downs, new experiences day after day after day, they have a way of humbling us if we will allow them to, right? If we are willing to admit, I didn't know nearly as much as I thought I knew. I was not near the expert that I thought I was. There was plenty that I did not know. That humility ought to drive us to lean on the people around us who are further down the road, right? That's one of the blessings of life in a church family. We are surrounded by people. They've been down this road before. They've gone through these changes. But Roger, in order for, borrowing from Titus 2, older women, for instance, teaching younger women, there's got to be humility all around that equation, a willingness to acknowledge, I've got a lot to learn. I'm not walking this pathway perfectly.
And the older women who are going to teach the younger women to love their husbands, to love their children, they're going to realize that they made mistakes in that process.
Absolutely.
And the reason why they're sharing these experiences with you, so you don't have to make the same mistake. But arrogance will say, I don't need to ask anybody because I've got this even when I don't have this. And that's pride speaking, and pride will put you in a corner and get you in trouble each time. And so one of the blessings as we think about how life changes, is to reach out. Number one, reach out to scriptures, see what the Bible teaches on this, but then to reach out to others who you said are ahead of us. Maybe you're a brand new parent and you see somebody with 3 or 4 kids. How do they do that? How do they get everybody ready on Sunday morning? Because we can't get one child ready, Or you see somebody that is an empty nester and you're about ready to be an empty nester. And what's it like when it's just nobody home except husband and wife? How do you deal with that? You spent the last 20 years talking about the kids, and now the kids are on their own. What do you talk about? And to get those insights, to get those challenges, and then even further down the road, and we've seen this in our congregation here, where we've had several pass away, and now for the first time you're a widow or you're a widower, and what's that like? How do I navigate through that? And so one of the blessings is you don't just going into the fog by yourself. You've got the power of scriptures to help you, and you got the power of a church family. And the closer we are to each other, the more open we are to each other, the more honest we are with each other, the more we help each other. And to learn that, okay, here's what I did and that really didn't work. Or here's something that really, really helped me. And then to share those experiences, and that will help.
Yeah. Humility is a key word here. The second word that comes to my mind is practice. I love how the pages of Scripture, God uses that word, practice, right? And I think that there is power in that word when it comes to even life within our families. There are going to be times that we misstep. There are going to be times, you can ask me how I know, you've got a 17-year-old daughter, and that 17-year-old daughter says something, asks about something, wants to do something, and it's awfully easy for dad to reply to her as if she is still 7 years old. Well, she's not, right? She is changing. Life is changing. Part of practicing is being willing to acknowledge, you know what, I could have handled that differently. I'm sorry. Moms and dads, don't ever be so sophisticated or so proud that you are unwilling to apologize to your children when everyone knows, including them and you, that you owe them an apology, right? We are all works in progress. Our homes are not museums of perfection. Our homes are training grounds of discipleship, right? And so humility and practice seem to me to be a really important idea here. Roger, as you mentioned, several different demographics in our church family. I mean, we've got people in every different situation here. We have babies being brought home from the hospital even earlier this week for the very first time, right? So, okay, if someone wants to prepare, how can we prepare as disciples for changes like this in the lives of our families?
I think first of all, you have to be grounded strong in the scriptures. Build your house upon the rock. That's what Jesus wants us to do. And to understand that, as a young couple, you're kind of mapping out your life. We've finished college. We've gotten married. We've got our apartment. We're going to do this. You got it all mapped out. And understand that those things are going to change. Things come up. Job you thought you were going to get doesn't come through, or that job requires you moving out of state and you didn't really want to do that, but here you go. And so don't be so tied to your plans that you can't allow God's plans to come in there. And understand that sometimes these challenges, these moves that we have to make in life, that it's into the unknown. We're a little bit scared. We don't know about these. They can open great new doors to us. It can put us around people we didn't know. It can put us in opportunities we didn't realize. And a lot of great things have happened. Times ago, A lot of great preachers began preaching because the preacher was sick one Sunday, and he calls up the guy on a Saturday night and say, "You're preaching tomorrow morning." And he thought, "Oh boy, I've never done this." And he gets in there and he does it, and he does it a time or two, and he realizes that's what I want to do with my life. So sometimes that's what life does to us. So how you prepare is number one, get into the word of the Lord, and know God's word, and to understand these things. The Lord would send the disciples out in the boat, and here comes a storm. They weren't prepared for that. It just happened. And that's what life does to us. We're going to do this and do this and do this, and all of a sudden one of our parents dies unexpectedly, or our company downsizes and I'm on the outside, or things happen like that. Well, what you do is you put your faith in the Lord. You pray. There's some financial things you can do to help prepare you, but understand that I haven't got the next 20 years of my life figured out. I got an idea, but the Lord is in control. And so as James 4 reminds us that if it's God's will, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. To borrow one more time from our discussion on Wednesday, of course, it's freely available in this very podcast feed, but you had talked with us last Sunday about the importance of seeing beyond the moment and seeing beyond this world. Something as simple as the ant is used by God in Proverbs chapter 6. Consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. Harvest time is coming, and you can think about that in a variety of different ways. As your children grow and move out of your house, in many ways, that's a harvest time, right? As they establish houses of their own, that is a time of harvest. And if you want them to be disciples, then you've got to sow the seeds of discipleship, like you said, Roger, from the time that they are very, very young. What a blessing to grow up in a household where there's not a discussion late Saturday night as to whether or not we're going to go and assemble with the saints the next morning. No, that's just what we do. We're disciples. Sunday's the best day of the week, and we're going to be there. And so we're going to prepare Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening to make sure that we're ready. It's not a case by case, weekend by weekend sort of thing. What a blessing to grow up in the household of disciples who, when there are special opportunities, we're going to be there. We're going to be there for special series. We're going to be there for weekend workshops where we're learning more about marriage and family. What it means to be a man of integrity, or a woman who loves the way that God would have her to love. What a blessing to grow up in a household where hospitality is just what we do, right? Not because that's necessarily what we scored high on in a personality test, but that's what disciples do. Disciples are hospitable. If you want your children to grow to be like that, well, what sort of seeds are you sowing in the spring and the summer in order to ensure that harvest in the fall of life?
And I would add too that you need to be doing that so they're seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, just preaching that may make a good Sunday sermon, but they need to see it Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday in your house.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be humble. You're going to be practicing. You're going to be relying on the Lord. They're going to see you praying. They're going to see your Bible opened on the nightstand, because that's what we want from our children. Then that's what we have to do, and that will navigate you through these changes. And one thing about all these changes is, as Hebrews tells us, that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And God doesn't change. And that's something we can count on. That's something that's a bedrock. And so as life kind of throws us curveballs and we got to make adjustments to our plans and changes and all these things that take place, one thing that's going to be sure, and that is God. And that's where our heart needs to be.
Amen. Change is coming. That is the title of our Fridays in February discussion. I have no doubt that our listeners are familiar with people. They have people in their spheres of influence, maybe in their own families, that could profit from these discussions. And so this was part 2. We would encourage you to share this ongoing discussion. You can have someone in your own life that you care about prepped between now and next Friday for part 3 of this discussion. But so far, life is all about change. That was last Friday, freely available in our podcast feed. Change in our families. Roger, I really appreciate you joining me today. We truly appreciate all of you for listening to the Heaven Bound podcast. We hope our conversation has helped you set your mind on things above and given you a little more fuel for this journey. Always remember, when you're walking with Jesus, you're heaven bound, and the best is yet to come.